Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Ryan.
And this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into this week's episodes, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. If you head over to patreon.com/Drive and Double Feature Podcast, we have a bunch of bonus content over there, fun conversations, quizzes, and it's only $5 a month. You help support the channel, but no main show content is locked behind Patreon. But getting into this week, we're back at it again with Bond. And we're talking about Spectre from 2015, the 24th James Bond movie. This one is directed by returning director Sam Mendes. And we got Daniel Craig back as Bond. Woohoo! And
And I didn't he say that this was going to be his last one at the time?
yes, this was supposed to be his last one. Um, which he of course went back on.
When they
But
cut him a big enough check, he's like,
Um,
okay.
maybe it was like, oh, I don't want to leave on that note. Because going into this one, the reception to this one was very, very like I would say mediocre. I wouldn't say it was bad. It's not Quantum of Solace, hate the movie bad. It has its fans, but definitely there's a lot of people out there that don't really like this one, especially when you compare it to like Casino Royale or Skyfall. It does not compare to those movies
Hmm.
in like greatness. So this one's kind of interesting, and I was interested to go back to this one because when I watched it last time, I actually liked it quite a bit. I was surprised after hearing everything bad about it, so I was like, okay, well let me reassess this and see how it goes. But I'm God, it's crazy. It feels like I watched this forever ago. I really didn't. How does this movie open again?
That
What's the
that
opening
that
stinger?
it's the Day of the Dead opening where they're like when Bond
Ah,
has like
yes,
the
one of the best
skeleton
parts of
mask.
the movie. Yes, where it's like, oh, it's kind of a one tracking shot of Bond in the parade, and it's Day of the Dead, and he walks through it, and you can tell he's older, man. Yeah, like I think I mentioned this last time with Skyfall, maybe, but now Daniel Craig, he's starting to age, not in a bad way, not in a Roger Moore like we need to put him against old people, kind of old, but he's aging.
Yeah, like well, I mean, it's like with Skyfall, they made a big deal of like, okay, you're past your prime, you're not as
Hmm.
good. And
Hmm.
it's like this one, it's like, oh no, I don't have any of those problems. But he's definitely aged in what the 3 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just you wait. The next one got released later. It was filmed later, and also COVID delayed it and everything. God, but we'll get to that one in a moment. But how did you feel about this opening sequence? I think it's pretty good. It's gigantic. Like it definitely is going for scale over everything.
It's probably the best part of the movie for me
Hmm.
because it's probably the most riveting scene of
Hmm.
the and just very heavily stylized, just like you said, like it's a one long tracking shot. I love the aesthetics of the Day of the Dead
Hmm.
festival. I love the little mask that he has on, and then he takes that one girl upstairs. You think he's gonna go to bed with her, but he's just kind of like, oh, I'll be back shortly, because he's really just doing that as a distraction, so that way he can get to the attacker, like the person that he's going after.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and it looks very good. It even has like a good little joke, a joke that I wouldn't expect from one of these, where the floor falls out from under him and he just crash lands on a couch and he just kind of looks around like, oh, okay, because it was like a big deal that he was gonna fall and get hurt. So I thought that was a fun little bit. No, I totally agree with you. I think this is probably one of the better parts of this.
Yeah, and I
Um,
mean that's and he goes around, and then before the scene ends, he finds the little Spectre ring with like the
mhm.
octopus.
Yes, yeah. And then we get our opening title sequence. All right. Woo, Oscar winning. Writing's on the wall. Sam
This
Sam
won an
Smith.
Oscar.
Yeah, this won an Oscar. So last time I heard this song, I hated it. I wouldn't say I hate it now, but it's not good.
It
It's not very good.
I don't hate it, but it's just I don't know. It's like, to me it does not. I mean, it's not a bad song, but it just does not fit the. It's a really I'm trying to think of a nice word to say that's that's not doesn't sound too bad. It's a very over the top song.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like it feels like it's just trying to be Skyfall again. Like he was
Yeah.
just like, I'm just gonna do Skyfall, but I'm gonna do it bigger, and it just doesn't really work.
Well, yeah, it's like Sam Smith's not a bad singer. I mean, he does sing well,
Mhm.
but it's like, but he does like the and if I risk it all, and then he does like the real like high pitch. How do I live? So it's just very, it's very ridiculous. I think kind of like it's not like I said, it's not bad, but it's just, it's like man, it's like you're really trying here so hard.
I know, yeah, and I mean, he got an Oscar out of it, and if we remember his Oscar speech, he said he was the first openly gay man to win an Oscar, which was completely wrong, like
Did he
completely
say
false.
that?
Yeah, he said that. He said, I forget how he words it, but he says, being the first openly gay man to win an Oscar, and then like literally, they did the after show thing where he talks to the press, and they're like, you aren't the first openly gay Oscar winner.
Who was the first?
I don't know. I don't know. But he was not the
John Wayne.
first. John Wayne, yes, openly gay John Wayne. I wish he was alive to hear that.
He'd be so upset.
He would be. He would call us un-American. Um, but yeah. So after all of that, we kind of get like,
Well, we didn't talk about like the actual imagery of the song.
you're
So
right. You're right.
uh, it's there's a lot of CG in this one, and
Yes, very like smoky CG.
it's not bad. There's some really like, I don't know, like maybe I was kind of like deterred by a little bit of the song quality, but it's not a bad opening sequence. Like when they're doing like they're falling and everything, and they're like trying to, they're trying to touch hands, or like you see like the
Mm.
octopus ring, like they do like a close up and it turns into like a real octopus.
Yeah, yeah, there's bits like that are good. There are some odd bits like Bond standing shirtless, just in the middle of everything. I think that's some like odd imagery. I don't know. I remember watching, like, honestly, it's a little forgettable at this point. So I don't know. It's okay. I think, like you said, the song kind of kills it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the song, at least the song attached to a Bond movie.
Hmm.
So it's very I don't know, it's not one of my favorite ones, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But the big thing about this movie is there's actually a lot of stuff going on back in London. They like this movie is making a really big point that like MI6, everything going there is extremely important, and it ties into the plot of the villain as well. Of course, it's not Judi Dench as M this time. We have Ray Fiennes playing M, but Judi Dench does show up for a little bit and is kind of like the plot starter. We see in like a video of her being like, "You got to kill this guy, Bond, no questions." So she dies, and she's still working. That's even a joke in the movie. Moneypenny and Q are both in on this plot, and Bond has, what he did, because we didn't even mention the end of the Day of the Dead scene where he crashes a helicopter, makes a
Yeah.
huge scene. So, I heard this. And I think this movie is so full of Bond cliches. It's kind of crazy. It's another Bond where it's like, Bond, you're grounded. You can't go anywhere. Don't take this mission. You can't do it anymore. Basically, like a cop movie almost.
Yeah, they're like, I'm removing your license to kill, or it's like I'm
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
you're
like,
like you're grounded. You're not going to be able to do any missions because Bond was like, because that was like the whole thing. Like he wasn't supposed to be there, and
mhm.
he still ends up causing like an international incident. And he was just like, "Oh, I just happened to be there at the same time that this happened, vacationing."
Yeah.
And
And
that's when he's like, "You're grounded."
yeah, and it's like it's the common theme that we've been seeing that I'm a little tired of like, oh, this is a dinosaur. This is such an old program. We don't need you double O's
Y-
anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, like they made like a whole big thing of like, it's like, what do we need you like? Because like the whole big like thing with the MI6 is that they get like this real bureaucratic type of guy where it's like, oh, like why do we need secret agents when we can just have AI do everything, basically?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a C, played by Andrew Scott. And yeah, that's his whole deal is it's like, oh, we can have AI do it, and we're gonna share all of our intelligence with other countries, like 7 other huge countries, which that's just sci-fi in itself, honestly. I don't
Yeah,
I
like
don't see that
what country would
happening.
ever be like, okay, let's just share notes with like what we know about other countries.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think so. And London, sorry, and England is the only one is like, no, I don't know about that one, guys, because during the voting, everyone else is like, yes, we are okay with this. Let's do it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so that's what's going on at home, and Bond's supposed to be grounded, but of course Bond's not grounded. He's gonna go and figure out what's going on with Spectre. And we actually get a fun Q scene in this because he does go to where Q tests stuff. He doesn't get to see any cool gadgets. He gets like he gets nano blood put in him. They call it
Mhm.
smart blood to track him wherever he goes. Um, and I guess he's been told by M to tease like Bond with all the cool gadgets and stuff. Like showing off a nice car, and he's
Like
like,
he's a
no,
kid.
yeah, not for you. Yeah, exactly. But Bond ends up taking that car for himself. And he sets it up for Q and Moneypenny to know where he is at all times.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he's covertly doing this mission that M's basically telling him to do. You know,
Hmm.
the old Judy Dench M is telling him
Yes,
to do. So he's kind of he's going rogue. Oh my God. And
that's crazy.
and he going back to that, I mean, I, I guess it wouldn't be as bad. It's like, okay, like if I watched License to Kill and then what, like almost 30 years later, I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty original. But when it's like 3 months ago, it's like when you watch them all like in a row like that.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, that's the problem with the binge watch. And there's people that would watch all of these like in the span of a few months, like back to back. But like
Yeah.
even just like watching these over the past little, well, God, I guess it's been over 2 years. Huh.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, oh my God, I did not realize how much Bond skis. Like he's skiing all the time.
I know exactly. Yeah, it's a little annoying how much Roger Moore loved skiing, and he wasn't the only one to ski, right? Like,
It's like,
but
let's just open the movie with me skiing, or let's have a ski chase. Let's
I
let's
I
let's
want a
have me going to.
vacation. Can we go to the Alps?
Yeah, he really loves snow.
Yeah. Um.
But anyway, yeah, it's so they're doing this covert mission, and Ray finds is basically adamant that Bond's not going to help out, but Q and Moneypenny are assisting Bond because they know it's what the old M would have wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's more at stake here because we find out that Spectre goes a lot deeper. Because Bond has to really dig into the details to see the connections to Spectre, and then kind of like what's been in line with the rest of these Bonds, all of these movies are connected. And Ryan, I was right because you a little bit ago, Quantum of Solace, you asked, does this bad guy, does he show up again? Yeah, he shows up for like a split second when he's like looking at all the bad guys from the past movies, and he's like there at the end, and they
Well, they
skip
don't
right
even like,
past it.
but it's this picture though that doesn't count.
I think so. I think they at least included a picture, and I think his picture's in the opening title sequence too. Am I crazy?
Is it? Because I don't think was he Inspector.
I don't know. I don't...
Well, I mean, I know they
well, I
made the
think
big
so.
point. I mean, they made the big point. It's like, oh, the chief, he was Inspector, and
Yeah,
oh, like,
whatever. Like that the in Casino Royale when they were setting up like that other Spectre type like deal going on. I guess that was actually Spectre the whole time. I forget what that was called in that movie.
I
But
don't
my
remember.
God, we get Mr. White again. He shows up again, and Bond has to interrogate him. And in order to get the information he needs to protect his daughter. So they kind of share, and this is how the Bond girl comes in the movie, played by Leah Seydoux. And she is playing Madeline Swan. And then they become like a duo the rest of the movie. It's one of those Bond movies, and I mean, a lot of these Daniel Craig ones, or at least Casino Royale, like the relationship is really like front and center what the movie is about. And obviously they really liked it in this one because they bring it into the next one as well. um how do you feel about her?
I mean, Leia Seydoux is a great actress. I mean, she was the movie, like she's been in a lot of really great movies. So I mean, she's not a bad actress. I mean, knowing what I know, like what her character ends up with, it's like I'm like, I don't know. Like I was like her being like the love of Bond's life or whatever. It's
Mhm.
like to me, there's not much that really she really stands out from like a lot of the other Bond girls, to be honest.
I actually liked her quite a bit. I don't know. I think she brings something to the role. Like you said, she's good, and I just think she brings a good performance. I think maybe it's just written too quickly because she goes from like Bond having given like she doesn't know this till later, but Bond gives the gun to her father so he could kill himself. And then but she knows something's there, and all these bad guys that are searching for her leads them to her. And so she goes from like completely hating Bond, and then by the end of the movie, like you said, love of Bond's life, they're inseparable. Maybe it just moved a little too quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do like the whole thing where she's like, well, I can't be with you, if you're gonna be a secret agent still, type of thing. So,
Mm-hmm. No,
but
yeah, it's like, oh, it's too dangerous, but you want to be this person, yeah, because this movie gets crazy, at least cliche wise, because oh, guess what? Blofeld's back. They brought back Blofeld people, which I think is God. I don't think they had to do that.
I
You
don't
have,
think so. I don't think so either. It's like that felt I mean, I guess they were just like, well, we got to use Spectre because I mean, that was like a whole. I was like, why do we really need to remake this? Why do we need Blofeld again?
Mhm.
I just, it reminded me a lot of you know, uh, like the newer Star Trek movies that came around like right around this time. It's like, oh well, we gotta do Wrath of Khan again. Like we gotta, but it's
Yeah,
different. It's like this time.
yeah, it's kind of like, oh, we're referencing the past, but we're doing it ourselves instead of doing just something completely original. Because you get someone like Christoph Waltz, who is great. I mean, I love
Yeah.
Christoph Waltz, and I think he's even good in this movie. But just the fact that he's Blofeld kind of holds it back a little bit because it's almost like you have something to compare it to in a way. It's like, oh, well, he has to get the scar. Oh, he gets the scar in the end. And like, what made him this way? And like, it's just like, it just feels a little unnecessary. And they could have done more with it.
Yeah, I don't think I needed a Blofeld origin story.
No, not at all. Especially when you find out that, well, he plants it and he's like, oh yeah, I'm related to you, Bond. And like, there's that whole twist.
When they did that, like even like back then, I thought that was so dumb. I
Yeah,
just
because
like it's like they. I'm like, are they really copying Austin Powers or whatever?
Exactly. Yeah, it's so weird. It's like the twist that they would, like other movies get made fun of for, and Bond never really did that because the Bond movies were never worried about being interconnected, and I think that's what's so fun about visiting them. It's like, oh, I get its own little new adventure, and it's okay that these new ones want to be somewhat connected, but we don't need like a whole origin story. They're related kind of deal. I think that's just like getting too convoluted. Um, at least that's in my opinion.
No,
Um,
yeah, I'm like, I mean, it would have like I think I would have rolled my eye. Like, can you imagine like if at the end of like You Only Live Twice, it's like, oh, we're actually like Donald Pleasance being like, we're actually related, Bond. Like, can you believe I'm
yeah. Well, yeah, that might be silly.
so,
um,
but yeah, so that's where I was just kind of like, didn't really feel like I needed that, and maybe that's why I'm kind of sour on
mhm.
Blofeld even being in the movie at all. Because I mean, Christoph Waltz, like as a Bond villain, would like as his own character, I think would really be exceptional.
But yeah, but I do think Christoph Waltz does do a good job. I do like him. Maybe they just hide him too much too. They're doing the whole Blofeld hidden face deal where you don't
Well,
know
yeah,
who he is. I wish you could see more of him.
well, I mean, like they do that whole thing, and you're like, I know. I mean, if you're a Bond fan, you're like, I
Mhm.
know who this is. It's like the head of Spectre. It's like we already know
But
it's gonna be.
here's the thing though. Like, okay, so like you said, as a fan, we already know that. But like, what's the point? The like whenever they do the big reveal, let's say to your general audience that doesn't watch Bond, they don't know who Blofeld is. So why would they why would they get excited by that reveal? So who is this reveal for?
Maybe that's supposed to be like, oh my God, it's Christoph Waltz.
Oh my god, I definitely didn't see anywhere that Christoph Waltz was in here. I mean he's not on the poster. Well, I think he is he the guy in the mask on the poster?
No, that's Bond, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh god, yeah, probably is. I mean Bond's in front of the mask.
Right, but that's he was the one wearing the mask.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I don't know. It's also just kind of a bad poster. I'm saying it right here. Let's
Oh,
ranking
whoa.
Bond posters.
Okay. Well, no, last one. I don't know what the last one would be,
I don't know.
but
But um
oh, we forgot to mention Dave Bautista as a henchman.
yes, we did forget about Dave Bautista as a henchman. Because he what does he do? I mean, he fights Bond a few times.
Well, he does like he's got the little gold fingernails, and he
Hmm.
like and like because there's one guy in Spectre, it's just like giving questioning what Blofeld's doing or whatever, and he's just like he just does like the finger, like the thumbs into like the guy's eyes and gouges his eyes out. And then
Yeah.
there was like the train fighting sequence.
Yeah, which I was gonna say that's like the most memorable part is the train fighting sequence because Bond is like just getting thrown around and his death is pretty good where like he ties a chain around Dave Bautista and it's tied to like they're like gas cans, right? And propane
They're
tanks.
yeah, or yeah, they're like kegs or look like.
Yeah, and they go out the train and they're going out one by one by one and then finally gets on the last one and he says shit and he gets thrown out.
And that's like the only word I think he says in the movie, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a silent villain in this movie. Isn't that crazy? Because this is when Dave Bautista was kind of he was in Guardians of the Galaxy the year before, but I would still say he wasn't like he's like in so many movies nowadays. It's absolutely insane. This is rising even further up. I mean, he was already rising before this, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Dave Bautista
Of
very
course you
well,
do. Yes, not me.
and um, he like stopped wrestling for a while, like after I think it was like 2010 or 2011, he stopped wrestling,
Hmm.
and then he like went and filmed Guardians of the Galaxy and Spectre, and then he came back, and like that was like the whole big thing. Like he came back and like before Guardians of the Galaxy came out,
Hmm.
and he wasn't like he was still beloved, but he wasn't like at like, oh, we got like an A-list actor, because there was actually
Yeah.
like there was reports that like some of the people thought like Guardians of the Galaxy was going to be like such a stupid, dumb movie or
I
whatever.
remember that. Yeah.
And like everyone's like, oh, it's gonna tank so bad. And they were just thinking like, it was a big joke that he was in this movie. But then, ends up being like one of the biggest Marvel movies ever. And it's like, and now everybody's like putting Dave Bautista and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's a whole side discussion, but not really much anymore. But I remember there for a little bit, everybody was saying like, "Oh, this Marvel movie's gonna stink and it's gonna kill all the movies." I think of that Guardians, they said that, and Doctor Strange. Everyone, I remember hearing like that movie's gonna ruin Marvel movies. It's gonna bomb, and no, it still made money. Kind of like Spectre. There we go. That's how we bring it back. This movie made 880 million, not as much as Skyfall, but it still made quite a bit of money, even though it cost $300 million to make.
Dave Bautista's paycheck.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a giant paycheck.
I
I heard he
mean,
got paid more than Daniel Craig.
he got needs a big man needs a big
Yeah.
paycheck.
I wonder who got paid more, Ben Winshaw or Dave Batista.
That's a good question.
Uh-huh.
I,
I'll
I
I'll
don't.
ask them. I'll send them emails.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Just
Tweet
drive.
at them. Which of you got paid more?
Might be able to Google that. I don't know,
I think so, maybe.
but
Um,
no, yeah, like well, so they do like the whole big Dave Batista. They do the whole train fight and everything,
mhm,
but and Bond's trying to protect Madeline.
mhm,
Um, and Bond in the meantime, like he does get kidnapped by Blofeld, and
mhm.
they do like the whole torture sequence. Except this one's like really like methodical. It's like, oh, I'm going to drill these little drills into your face, and
It's like Saw.
yeah, it's like a whole saw scene, he's like, oh, like once I hit this, like you're going to forget her name, Bond. And it's like,
Yeah, no, great, good impression. Yeah, no, yeah, no, and I like it because Bond just keeps on trying to like throw things or like say things to piss Christoph Waltz off, and he doesn't take any of it. Like he's just very just like quiet and just like, okay, whatever you say, Bond. But he gets an exploding watch earlier in the movie, and that's how he tricks him. Because he gets drilled, but somehow survives the drilling. It's
yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah, like they just hit him like behind the eye or like it's like
Uh-huh.
on your like temple, and it's just, but it because they're like really tiny drills, but then
Hmm.
it does like the final one where it's like it's at his eyes, and he's like, oh no, and that's where it stops.
Yeah, yeah. That scene's really silly because Madeline Swan runs up to him, and then he's like, she's like, "Oh, Bond, do you remember me?" And he's like, I remember that face anywhere." All right.
Yeah, I remember that, and I'm surprised like, and then Blofeld just like lets her do that, like just go over and
But
like kiss him and stuff, and I'm like why? And of course, like he slips her the watch, and then she uses it as you know a, an explosive, and it blows Blofeld away.
hmm. Yeah, and you think this would be the end of the movie, but no, the movie keeps going.
This I think this is the longest movie, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the longest one, and you can feel it because like that's not the end. It goes on because you have the whole thing going on back at home, where M is pretty much getting pushed out, and C is trying to take over everything. But you come to find out that C is connected to Spectre and is basically falling into the evil plans. So that whole thing's going on back at home, and then Bond is there too, but he's having to deal with Blofeld in like the old MI6 headquarters as it explodes which once again is like a saw trap because Madeline Swan is like in connected to strings in an exploding building, and Blofeld's like, you have 60 seconds, Bond. Either save yourself or you save her, but he does both.
Of
um
course.
yeah. So that happens. Ray Fiennes ends up killing
See,
C, and I had just watched Conclave, and I was watching Ray Fiennes in this, and he's good in just about anything. I think he's pretty good in this movie. I like him. Hmm.
I do like him as M. Like I
Yeah, I think
that
he's a good pick.
if they were going to go with somebody else, I was like, I'm glad they went with somebody like that because they kind of went with somebody very respectable, and it's like at least they got like a great actor.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I would have loved a M that was younger than Bond, and then there was tension there or something. No.
Lowercase M.
Yeah. Look, I like that. Yeah, that sounds like something Bond would say. Um, but now everything gets wrapped up because Blofeld almost gets out by helicopter, and the helicopter crash lands on a bridge, and
Well, no, the Bond shoots it with his Walter PPK,
uh-huh.
and he shoots it like out of the sky with a little pistol,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
like and then because he hits it just right.
Yep. And while he's riding on a boat, by the way.
Yeah, it's a moving target while he's moving.
Yeah. But he takes it down, and that becomes like a big moment because they do the thing. They do the
they
cliche thing.
I'm like, you've done this every movie now, and it's
Uh,
like where it's like, oh, like are you Bond's gonna let his rage take over and murder? I'm like, he has overcome that hurdle at least three times now,
yeah,
and it's
and it
like what like I don't he didn't succumb to it the other two times, so why is he gonna do it now?
yeah, and it's weird because in this one, I don't even feel that because that was kind of a thing with the first two movies was like they were just the rage was there. You could tell he was angry. In this one, he's not really. He's very calm. This is probably the most put together Bond has ever been in one of these movies. He doesn't have to worry about age in this one, and he doesn't have to worry about anger issues. He just takes care of business. But of course, they have the ending where it's like, oh, will he kill Blofeld? No, of course not. And he walks away with his lover, and that's how it ends. Oh man, is there? I mean, if this was the last one, I guess it would be a send off.
Well, yeah, because he gets I think that's how they were going to do it, because at the end of the movie, he takes the like the old school Ashton Martin and drives
Hmm.
off in it. And I was like, oh, okay, so that would be like but man, that would not have been a good one to end on. I mean,
I think that's why they didn't end on it. Partly, other than just like we need Daniel Craig back just for another one.
yeah. And to be honest, it's not one of my favorites.
Mhm.
It's pretty forgettable for me. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not bad. It's not like Quantum of Solace where I'm just like, I don't care about any of these characters, or like it wasn't like that bad. But this one, it was just kind of like, yeah, yeah, I remember all the, and it just after it was done, I was like, I didn't watch it.
No, no, I get it. Yeah, I feel similarly. I think I came out of it really liking it the first time, and this time I liked it less when I looked at it. Because I think the first time I took it as like, oh, it's kind of a loving send up to like Bond cliches. But here I'm realizing, no, it's a little more than that. It's cliche outside of just like being like, oh, we're doing Bond stuff as usual. No, it kind of like we've seen all of this stuff in other movies. I do enjoy it because I like Bond, I like the Bond girl, and I like the villain. I think they all work well, good performances, but it's definitely it sits neatly between Quantum of Solace and like Skyfall Casino Royale is like kind of like the middle ground. And I agree. I'm glad they didn't end here. I'm glad they decided let's do one more.
Yeah. And oh boy, what
Oh
do they
boy.
do? What do they do for the next one?
Oh wow. Well,
No, I'm asking, what do they do for the next one?
well, you'll have to see. It's got somebody from one of your favorite movies of all time, Bohemian Rhapsody, in it.
Oh, I've never seen it. Who's that?
Oh, you've never seen Bohemian Rhapsody? Okay, well, we're gonna watch that before we watch the next Bond movie.
All right. Well, so that's our next week's pick. Bohemian Rhapsody. Got it.
Yeah, yep, we get it down. No, no, I actually do not want to watch that movie again. But but yeah, I do think that wraps it up. I'm gonna give it a light recommend. Light recommend.
Yeah, I would probably give it a light recommend. It wouldn't, it's not bad, but it's just not one of my favorites.
All right. Well, then that wraps it up for today. But Ryan, remind us what we are covering on Thursday.
Well, Nathan, we don't really have like a true kaiju movie, so let's go to a different country, and we're going to try a Chinese kaiju movie, and it's going to be a Shaw Brothers martial arts movie that's also a kaiju movie, kind of, which is Super Inframan, and that is for free on YouTube right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch that one. And if you want to send us an email, you can email us at driveanddoubleFeaturePodcast@gmail.com. You can also head on over to X and send us a message, tweet at us, whatever over there, and check out our Patreon. But until next time.
Until next time.